Week 28 Day 1. Vulnerable, open to attack, susceptible, easily affected. Sense the egotist is vulnerable to slights and insults. Sense vulnerable adjective, able to be easily physically, emotionally, or mentally hurt, influenced or attacked. I felt very vulnerable, standing there without any clothes on. It is on economic policy that the government is most vulnerable. Tourists are more vulnerable to attack, because they do not know which areas of the city to avoid. Vulnerability. Now new bedlam, confusion, uproar. Sense the winning team's dressing room was a scene of bedlam. Sense bedlam. Now new, a noisy lack of order. It was bedlam at the football ground after the match was suspended. Cacophony, discord, harsh sound, dissonance. Sense electronic music is considered nothing more or less than cacophony by many. Sense cacophony. Noun, an unpleasant mixture of loud sounds. What a cacophony! As we entered the farmyard, we were met with a cacophony of animals' sounds. Cacophonous adjective, exploit, profit by, utilize. Sense advertisers spend large sums to exploit the lucrative, profitable teenage market. Sense exploit, use well. Sense verb to use something for advantage. We need to make sure that we exploit our resources as fully as possible. Exploitable adjective, the coal mine is no longer commercially exploitable, can no longer be used for profit. Exploitation. Sense noun, New Britain's exploitation of its use of its natural gas reserves began after the Second World War. Sense exploit, use unfairly. Sense verb to use someone or something unfairly for your own advantage. Laws exist to stop companies exploiting their employees. Exploitable adjective, the lack of jobs in this area means that the workforce is easily exploitable. Employers can use workers unfairly for their own advantage. Exploitation. Sense noun, you, when someone uses someone else unfairly for their own advantage. Marx wrote about the exploitation of the workers. Exploitative adjective, using someone else unfairly for your own advantage. Exploiter. Noun, see someone who uses other people or things for his or her own profit or advantage. Sense exploit act. Sense noun, see usually plural, something unusual, brave or funny that someone has done. She was telling me about her exploits while traveling around Africa. Propinquity, nearness in time or place. Sense astronauts are alert to the propinquity of sudden accidents. Noun, the property of being close together. A white elephant, a costly and useless possession. Sense, when he discovered the 30-volume encyclopedia, dated 1895, in his attic, he knew he had a white elephant on his hands. A dangerous sport. Racing car drivers are vulnerable to dangers that other sportsmen seldom face. Drivers agree that controlling a car at top speeds on a winding course is a singularly awesome experience. There's the bedlam caused by the roaring motors that move the car from a standing start to 100 miles an hour in 8 seconds. One is shaken by the cacophony of the brakes, larger than the wheels, and producing during the course of a 350-mile race enough heat to warm an 8-room house through a hard winter. The driver needs to be on the alert to exploit any mistake by an opponent, and he must be constantly aware of the propinquity of sudden death. All of this makes car racing one of the most demanding games of all. Week 28 Day 2. Disgruntled, happy, displeased. Sense it is the prevalent mood for youngsters to be disgruntled with the world situation. Sense disgruntled adjective, unhappy, annoyed and disappointed about something. A disgruntled former employee is being blamed for the explosion. The players were disgruntled with the umpire. Infallible, exempt from error, right. Sense an infallible sign of spring is the blooming of the crocus. Sense infallible adjective, never wrong, failing or making a mistake. Even the experts are not infallible. Infallibly adverb, always. He's infallibly cheerful, despite his difficulties. Infallibility, noun, you, panacea, cure-all. Sense many people hoped that the United Nations would be the panacea for the problems of our times. Sense panacea, noun, see usually singular, one disapproving something that will solve all problems. Technology is not a panacea for all our problems. 2. Something that will cure all illnesses. Eradicate, wipe out. Sense the criminal tried to eradicate all of the witnesses to the bizarre murder. Sense eradicate verb to formal, to get rid of completely or destroy something bad. The government claims to be doing all it can to eradicate corruption. The disease which once claimed millions of lives has now been eradicated. Eradication, noun, you, impede, interfere, block, hinder. Sense nothing could impede the bigot from his vitriolic verbal attack. Impede verb. If you impede someone or something, you make their movement, development, or progress difficult. Fallen rock is impeding the progress of rescue workers. Lock, stock, and barrel entirely, completely lock, stock, and barrel is a merism figure of speech used predominantly in the United Kingdom and North America, meaning all, total, everything since the company moved its operations to another state. Lock, stock, and barrel since the place is owned lock, stock, and barrel by an oil company. The mystery of creativity. In order to create, it is said that a man must be disgruntled. The creative individual is usually one who is dissatisfied with things as they are. He wants to bring something new into the world, to make it a different place. There is no infallible way to identify a potentially creative person. The speed up in the sciences has forced schools and industry to seek a panacea for the shortages that they face. The need to discover and develop the creative person has been the source of much study. The paramount supreme objectives of the studies are to eradicate anything that will impede the discovery of creative talent, and to exploit this talent to the limit. Null Week 28 Day 3. Sedate, quiet, still, undisturbed, sober. Since there is something absurd ridicule about a well-dressed, sedate man throwing snowballs. Since sedate, calm adjective tending to avoid excitement or great activity, and to be calm and relaxed, the fight against a chemical storage site has transformed a normally sedate village into a battleground. The speed limit in many areas is a sedate 55 mph. Sedately adverb sense sedate drug verb t, to cause a person or animal to be very calm, or go to sleep by giving them a drug. When I saw him after the accident he was still in shock and was heavily sedated. Sedation noun. She's under strong sedation, and should not be disturbed. Sedative noun. See a drug used to calm a person or animal, or to make them sleep. Equanimity, evenness of mind, composure. For character. Since the speaker lost his equanimity, and began to use invective, when the audience started to laugh. Sense equanimity noun. Formal calmness and self-control, especially after a shock or disappointment or in a difficult situation. He received the news of his mother's death with remarkable equanimity. 3 years after the tragedy she has only just begun to regain her equanimity. Compatible, harmonious, well-matched. Since the boy and girl discovered they had many compatible interests. Since compatible adjective, able to exist, live together, or work successfully with something or someone else. It was when we started living together that we found we just weren't compatible. This software may not be compatible with older operating systems. No such policies are not compatible with democratic government. Are there two blood groups compatible? Can blood from one person be given to the other person? Compatibility noun. Compatibly adverb serenity, peaceful, repose. For environment. Since the serenity of the countryside was shattered by the explosion. Since serene adjective, peaceful and calm, troubled by nothing. She has a lovely serene face. Serenely adverb. She smiled serenely and said nothing. Serenity noun. I admired her serenity in the midst of so much chaos. Revere, honor, respect, admire. Since there are not many people in this world whom one can revere. Since revere verb t, formal, to greatly respect and admire someone or something. Nelson Mandela is revered for his brave fight against apartheid. Reverence noun. Formal. She shows feels great reverence for her professors. Reverent adjective, formal. A reverent silence fell over the crowd. Note, the opposite is irreverent. Reverently adverb, formal. He laid the wreath reverently in front of the memorial. Reverential adjective, formal. No, he opened the ancient book with reverential care. Reverentially, a feather in one's cap, something to be proud of. If she could get the movie star's autograph, she knew it would be a feather in her cap. The Dutch. The first impression one gets of Holland is that it is a calm, sedate, and simple land. The slow rhythm of life is even seen in the barges on the canals and the bicycles on the roads. One gradually discovers this equanimity of daily existence is not in accord with the intrinsic nature of the Dutch. These people are moved by strong feelings that are not compatible with the serenity of the world around them. There is a conflict between the rigid, traditional social rules and the desire for liberty and independence, both of which the Dutch revere. Week 28 Day 4. Irrational and reasonable. absurd sense we ought to expect some irrational behavior from a senile person since irrational adjective not using reason or clear thinking, it's totally irrational, but I'm frightened of mice. His parents were worried by his increasingly irrational behavior. Irrationality noun irrationally adverb people often behave irrationally when they are under stress. Avarice greed, passion for riches sense, who is not vulnerable to some measure of avarice? Avarice and avarice is extremely strong desire for money and possessions. He paid a month's rent in advance, just enough to satisfy the landlord's avarice. Insatiable cannot be satisfied since the American consumer appears to have an insatiable need for new products since insatiable adjective especially of a desire, or need too great to be satisfied. Like so many politicians, he had an insatiable appetite hunger for power. Nothing, it seemed, would satisfy his insatiable curiosity. Insatiably adverb nadir lowest point since he looked upon the last place finish of his team with equanimity. From this nadir the only place to go was up since nadir noun as formal the worst moment, or the moment of least hope and least achievement, the defeat was the nadir of her career. Compare zenith. Moribund dying, at the point of death since with the expansion of the supermarket, the small, local grocery store is in a moribund state. Null sense moribund adjective formal disapproving especially of an organization or business not active or successful. How can the trade department be revived from its present moribund state? Out on a limb in a dangerous or exposed position since he went out on a limb, and predicted he would win the election by a wide margin. Tulip fever. The tulip reached Holland in 1593 and was, at first, looked upon as a curiosity. There soon developed an irrational demand for new species. Specimens were sold at awesomely high prices. In their avarice, speculators bought and sold the same tulip 10 times in one day. The entire Dutch population suffered from the craze. There was an insatiable desire for each new color or shape. At one point a man purchased a house for 3 bulbs. Before long the inevitable crash came, and the demand for bulbs quickly reached its nadir. A $1,500 bulb could be bought for $1.50. With the moribund tulip market came financial disaster to thousands of people. Week 28 Day 5. Read my lips. For many years it has been the goal of computer specialists to perfect a machine that would understand human speech. The problem is that the speaker has to be alone and in a quiet room. Noise will impede the computer's ability. In the serenity of a special room, the computer works well. Now, math wizards genius are trying to develop a computer that will read lips despite any surrounding cacophony. While some of us think it irrational to believe that a computer can read lips, the experiments go on. And there has been some success. Progress in all aspects of computer science has been so remarkable that we hesitate to rule out any possibility. There is one infallible rule about the world of computers: this seemingly impossible gets done more quickly than we ever imagined.